All right, everybody, welcome back to Off the Grid on the Record. Today, we're diving into a space most people underestimate. It's the nonprofit and social impact sector. So it's not just about bake sales and soup kitchens. It's a $400 billion industry in the US alone, with global impact stretching into the trillions when you include social investment. So my guest today is Cyrus Kazi, co-founder and CEO of Quantibly, a company that's reinventing how nonprofits collect, analyze, and present impact data. So, I mean, after 25 years at the intersection of tech and social impact, Cyrus saw a huge problem. Organizations were drowning in disconnected tools, fudged reports, and broken systems for accountability. Quantibly is his answer, and it's kind of an operating system for impact. So we're going to talk about the hidden complexity of nonprofits, why data is the make or break factor for trust, and what the future of social impact tech looks like. So, Cyrus, welcome to the show. Where are you joining us from today?
Hey, thanks a lot, man. I love that introduction. You did half my job for me. I appreciate it.
There you go. Okay. See you guys next week. Take care.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And it's great to be here.
Amazing, of course. And I mean, outside of Quantibly, which we're going to dive in, give us a background on yourself. I mean, where did you come from? What's your story?
My story is related to my work with Quantibly. I started my academic background is in economics and public policy. And years ago, 25 to almost 27 years ago, when I started working in the sector, my focus was protecting children from abuse and neglect. So I was very hands-on in a very particular niche, working through this area. And this was like the late 90s, the tech bubble burst. Everyone was talking about technology and how technology can reduce the digital divide and help the social impact sector. But no one actually had any idea how to do it except for throwing hardware and software at not-for-profits, right?
Hmm.
Um, so as I was coming out of that direct services, working in a child welfare system, if you will, I started to realize that there are no digitized singular way to kind of measure child welfare impact, especially. And
Hmm.
so that work over the course of many, many years, and talking to thousands and thousands of my colleagues, um, nonprofits, NGOs, social enterprises, this all led to the research project now, which is Quantibly. So personal, academic background tied to my early career interest that turned into how do we make this happen? How do we make this happen so that it makes sense? Not just a bunch of data
Hmm.
collection, but the data needs to make sense. So that's the genesis of Quantibly. Quantibly was the first platform operationalized what is called the theory of change. It is a very common methodology for measuring impact.
Hmm.
We're the first platform to do it. Others have tried and unfortunately have failed, because they approached it as a tech problem as opposed to a systems problem, right? Anyways, a lot more into it, but we that's how we got started, and that's why we're still here.
Fair enough. But I mean, I think a big turning point would be, the moment where you realize that nonprofits didn't just need funding, they needed infrastructure. So, I mean, give me a breakdown on that entire idea.
Right. That's a kind of the $1 million question. So a lot of times, and this is not an indictment of my colleagues in the industry. I am part of the industry. Um, is that a lot of times when leaders in the not-for-profit sector think about infrastructure, they think adding more tools, right?
Hmm.
So the first step, the first problem that I see with a lot of organizations that we work with, it has a multi-tool problem, for lack of a better phrase. So an average not-for-profit, I mean, even a tiny one uses between 17 to 25 different tools to collect the data, and none of
Hmm.
them are connected. None of them make any sense. They drive this. They use this tools to primarily do two core things: one, to get to donors or drive donor information, and two, program data, which is the services that they provide and stuff like that. But uh, again, those things are not related. There is no breadcrumb between the information, and for the leadership to make sense out of this is an undertaking. I mean, having worked in this sector, I would say about 60% of the time that is spent in the not-for-profit world at this time is administrative nonsense, right? It's skunk work in terms of data. So
Hmm.
that's the first issue. Um, and in terms of infrastructure, a lot of times, when we are talking to organizations, the first thing I tell them, like, look, software is just a tool. It's not going to make your life better, whether you have AI or not AI or any of this,
Hmm.
unless you have the culture, the people, the systems, the processes set up. Tech is just an enabler, right? So think of
Hmm.
infrastructure from an organizational standpoint, not just bunch of tools put together to build a building, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I was talking to a colleague this morning, and then I said that um, I mean it's not a it's a very old saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And that culture of innovation, culture, the technology driven culture, data driven culture takes time. That is not a software issue. That is
Hmm.
that is subjective. That is leadership issue. So the infrastructure problem that I see in the overall not for profit and NGO world, if you will, is that we are stuck in a multi tools system, and the leaders that I talk to, a majority of them, don't think of tools as just an enabler. They think they're just going to solve the problem. So they
Hmm.
invest less in the culture and the process and the systems, the unsexy stuff that nobody wants to touch.
Fair enough. That's huge. I mean, one thing I do want to talk about also to expand on that while you're in you're in the wheelhouse there is, collection, analysis, presentation. You've called these three big gaps. So,
Mhm.
I mean, how does Quantibly actually solve each one of those?
Ooh, that's a great question. And I am about to go into my TED talk. um, so the first problem, before even collection, analysis, and reporting happens, the first problem that we see is having a data strategy. And
Hmm.
that's where the intangible comes in. Why are we collecting the data that we are, and what's the purpose of it? I want to say about 99% of the organizations that we work with, they collect, I want to say about half of the data they collect is junk data. They have no use for it. Or they don't know, even if they're collecting it, they don't know how to use it. And don't take me
Hmm.
wrong, that data is important, but just not relevant for their work all the time, right?
Fair enough.
So a lot of effort is goes into the data collection effort as opposed to the why and the how
Hmm.
and what do we do with it. So in Quantably, one of the main things that we talk about when we start to onboard clients is that, do you have a data strategy? Why do you want to sign up with Quantably? I mean, I know
Hmm.
that's a kind of like that is probably not something I should be asking a potential client, but I literally, and so does my team, we ask, why do you want to use Quantity? And a lot of times they would say, oh, we're looking for a CRM or ERP. And that's when we start to demystify the information. And the first thing that we demystify, we're not a glorified spreadsheet. We're not a
Hmm.
CRM. We're not an ERP. If you're looking for junk data in, junk data out, there's an abundance. You can do it in a Google spreadsheet. Honestly, you don't need
Exactly.
something like Quantity. And that piques their interest. And they're like, okay, then how do I collect the data? Right. So
Hmm.
over the course of last 5 years, because we uh, uh, started our work at the beginning of the pandemic, actually, we started building those form-based applications that is accessible, very easy to roll out, doesn't require 6 7 months or even a year of customization, all of that, like Salesforce and others. Great tools,
Hmm.
but it's like moving mountains, right?
Yes.
um so we kind of simplified that the first stage, which is, can I deploy a form to collect the data in a rural community, to collect, let's say, data on maternal health? Or
Hmm.
can I deploy an application so fast because my program is about to start from September 1 and I don't have a tool
Hmm.
kind of operationalize this and integrate that with the main, the central hub, so to speak. So that was the first problem. The second problem was that, okay, now that we have given the tool, now that, can it be used everywhere? Can everyone use it? The second problem we had to address after just building the tool is that how do we make it accessible for anybody? Not everyone has the same kind of tech skills to navigate through complex Blackboards and Salesforce of the world. So we had to kind of almost, and it's going to sound cheeky almost, we had to build with empathy for the user. Had to build things before we even get to the collection part. We had to think about accessibility for
Hmm.
people with disabilities, for example, right?
Of course.
Or someone with with the technical skills of a, let's say, a fifth grader, for lack of a better phrase. So how do we make it so simple that data collection becomes simple and easy? Yeah, I am sorry about my bandwidth. It's being choppy. Apologies.
That's okay. It's okay. Keep going. Next
Um,
time it happens, just keep going.
you got it. So we build these applications for data collection, and then internally, once the data is entered, we automated the entire process we have a proprietary impact LLM. We're the first one to actually have an impact LLM. So the data that is coming in is generating learning for that particular organization and all the stakeholders who are entering and retrieving data from there, right?
Hmm.
So the analysis part that a lot of organizations spend ridiculous amount of time doing, we completely simplified and automated it. Any report, any variables, anything you want. Because a CFO is going to look at a different set of data than let's say a fundraising director, or the CEO is going to
Hmm.
look at different things on a board chair, if you will, right? So having the diversity of data was also the second part. That's how we kind of did the solve the analysis problem. And then the
Hmm.
last part is reporting. The reporting aspect is a little tricky because we're not a communications company. However, because we have so much data that we can visualize, we can analyze and display, we kind of guide them to talk to our partner companies that are strategic communication experts, say, hey, you want to attract new donors, make your statement backed by data. The data comes from Quantibly, but the narrative can be helped, designed by X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, we have, agentic AI that can write very nice narratives and proposals and reports that within the system. But I I try not to tell our client organizations that, you know, uh, that is the communication tool that you should be using. You should bring in the human intelligence into this aspect, instead of just relying on
Hmm.
AI driven reporting and what have you. So just to kind of recap this very long-winded answer is that the data collection part that we designed was to simplify the tool so that we can roll out within weeks as opposed to months and years. The second part was the automation and the analysis is already integrated so that you don't have to really have complex statistical
Hmm.
knowledge to understand the data. And the reporting is again with AI and certain other tools, we are connecting them, giving them the background giving them the data so that they can communicate that to whomever they want to.
Fair enough. I mean, one thing I just want to touch on is like, do you find that executives in the nonprofit sector underestimate how much skewed or incomplete data actually, erodes public trust?
It's a great question. I think that there is a pervasive thinking in many not-for-profit executives that no matter what I communicate, with or without data, with verifiable data or not, my mission is what's going to bring in money and supporters and what have you. That myth of mission over margin kind of drives a lot of not-for-profit executives. Do they
Hmm.
underestimate the need for data sanitization and this kind of collection stuff, the infrastructure? Absolutely. We hear this almost every day. Uh, is it changing? Yes. The reason it's changing is because think about it this way: a new generation of digital native young people are becoming donors. Now they're not for profit volunteers. They're joining the corporate
Hmm.
world, and they want to be part of meaningful, impactful organizations. These
Hmm.
people, this younger generation, are data driven. And if when they don't see data and all they see is a fluffy story, they get turned off. Like, where is the proof?
Hmm.
Not-for-profits are realizing that in order for them to go away from baby boomer money, which is dying out, and attract new generation of donors, they need to be data driven.
Hmm.
That's the first component. And second is even the donors, institutional funders, um, philanthropic, venture philanthropy, impact capital, they're all asking, like, show me my impact. If I'm going to invest $1 million in your project, in your not-for-profit, you show me my ROI as well as my SROI, social return on investment. And
Hmm.
not-for-profits who are doing that, thankfully, with Quantibly, are the ones who are growing, from 3 million to 30 million in a few years, because now they're on a pathway.
Hmm.
They know how to leverage the data.
Exactly.
Um, and organizations that are still relying on the old school, glorified spreadsheets are just waiting for their existing network to just keep writing them checks so that they can stay relevant, in my opinion.
There we go. We're back again. Okay. Well, the one thing I want to talk about is how, I mean, you already have, over 500 clients already. I mean, mostly nonprofits, but how we also talked, it's some healthcare and some ed tech companies. What kinds of organizations get the most immediate value?
Um, I would say small, mid-sized organizations, especially in human services, are going to, like, as it stands, the platform, they are going to be the most benefited from it. The reason being, when we designed this version of Quantibly, we had this very underserved market in mind. The larger
Hmm.
organizations have enough money enough to burn on, large ERP systems, and they're fine with 5 years of rollout. They're fine with it. Small organizations, mid-sized organizations, they don't have that capacity. They don't have that time. They have to get things done, get the data, get working, report back, and that's how they operate, right?
Hmm.
So when we designed the current version, the specifically for human services like youth, education, health, um, uh, you know, workforce development, for example, those are the organizations who can kind of plug and play, set it and forget it kind of way. So they don't have to hire an IT department. They don't have to hire outside consultants to code for 6 months, all of that stuff. It's just
Hmm.
unnecessary. So they are the ones who are going to be most beneficial. Now, there's a second part to this is that, but we didn't forget the enterprises, very large not-for-profits or foundations. Our enterprise platform is essentially kind of like a headless CRM, right? Meaning,
Hmm.
the way we have designed it, it actually doesn't exist in the market at the moment, and we're launching it very soon. Is that we ingest all the data into our secured black box that is not shared with anybody, not even
Hmm.
LLM companies and what have you. And then we deploy our LLM, our agentic AI. So essentially, a very large enterprise, like let's say Salvation Army or the United Way, they have their
Hmm.
own little ecosystem of data. Once they have that, they can just literally write down any prompt and it will answer the question. One
Hmm.
of our investors in Canada started calling us Chat GPT for impact, which was super cute. I liked it. So, so going away for large enterprises to move away from form-based applications to prompt-based application, that's the
Hmm.
kind of things that they are benefiting from.
That's amazing. And I love talking about the benefits, but I also kind of want to talk about like your go-to market, right? I mean, the growth side of it is obviously the way that you're going to get the most impact out of everything. So, I mean, instead of the traditional, approach of cold outreach, you're leaning into partnerships with, auditors, fundraising consultants, and I want to say other trusted players in the nonprofit ecosystem. Why that approach over something a lot more traditional?
Having worked in this sector, I have realized that the procurement decisions, especially when it comes to, cost pockets, technology
Hmm.
is a cost pocket, right? Uh, they are not done lightly unless an organization has, a certain amount of money and endowments, and they don't really care. Majority organizations, when they make a technology purchase decision, either that tech is so small that it doesn't make much of a difference, like Grammarly, like for the day-to-day writing,
Yeah. Yeah.
or it is an enterprise system like, Salesforce or Blackbot or something for a very particular function. So when they make that decision, that is not over cold email, phone calls, none of that. Um, these organizations actually go out and talk to other people who have used it, good experiences, bad experiences, and so on and so forth, and then they make a decision, right?
Hmm.
And in many cases, many of those purchase decisions have to be approved by the board, which is another layer of scrutiny and authorization. It's not like the private sector, I like it, just let's go deploy it. So
Hmm.
that's why the sales cycle in the nonprofit sector is a lot higher if you go through the traditional route, in my opinion. However,
Yes.
if we have realized over the years that if we partner up with subject matter experts like fundraising consultants and accountants and executive coaches or impact experts, when they
Hmm.
are talking about Quantibly, their audience is already listening. So it's not a warm handoff. They are quite literally endorsing, saying this is the kind of application that's going to help you do X, Y, and Z. So that
Yes.
passive endorsement has a lot more stickiness than the traditional outbound campaigns and stuff like that. Because let's face
Hmm.
it, when not-for-profits go through financial difficulties, challenges, the first thing that they look at is which tech can I cut, right? And internally, about a year ago, we went into stealth mode, by the way, and we decided that we want to become like Gmail for nonprofits. So
Hmm.
it's simple, it's easy, it's part of your communication, it's part of your infrastructure, so embedded and necessary that it would be almost difficult to think of a replacement.
Hmm.
And that's how Quantibly is designed. Quantibly touches every single component of a not-for-profit operations, from board governance to reception. And because of that, once it gets embedded, it's just scaling with you. You don't have to get rid of it to be operational and things like that. Give this example to a lot of people. Sometimes when companies go through budget cuts, they would get rid of CRMs and ERPs and go back to pen and paper sometimes, not literally, figuratively. Um,
Yeah.
but they never change their email system. They never get rid of their
Hmm.
Outlooks and the Gmails because that's where the biggest data points are, right? So why not become that? So um, yeah, that's how we that's why we decided to go through the partnership route, kind of like an affiliate route, if you will,
Hmm.
instead of the traditional outbound campaigns. And because we have seen the returns, it's less than 1%, and it's just a waste of our effort.
Fair enough. One thing I think I'm just like kind of curious of, but do you think that nonprofits are fundamentally more peer driven in their adoption, right? Like needing to hear from other organizations before trying new tech. I know you kind of touched on it, but I like the direct answer for this one because when we talked earlier, you blew my mind with this one.
Um, that's been my observation. I'm happy to be wrong about this. Um,
Hmm.
over the course of and there's a reason for it, and the reason is this, that at least that's what I understand. Most not-for-profits are dealing with public money. So in theory, when they are investing in technology, they need to show that they're not doing shady deals and things like that. They have a pretty good vetting process and things like that. And because they have a vetting process, procurement policies and things like that, they have to open up the bid for multiple entities, and then they have to collect the data. It's part of financial control, right?
Hmm.
Then they present that data to an independent body, either internally or to the board, saying, hey, we need this, and these are the data that we got. Our internal vote is for X platform as opposed to the Y platform. So that
Hmm.
vetting process doesn't always exist in the private sector. That's not the problem we see. The added component complexity is that when a nonprofit is receiving government dollars, especially in the US, the government contracts have particular requirements. vetting
Hmm.
requirement, minority and women business enterprise requirements, depending on the state. So add those layers into the vetting process, the procurement process. You obviously have to go through a step by step through kind of peer advice before they can just sign up with applications. So structurally is designed
Hmm.
that way, but that's not to say that nonprofits don't respond. But the my observation has been that those are transactional tools. Like as I said, I use Grammarly as an example, as opposed to something structural, which is quantity.
Hmm. Of course, I like that. I mean, this is now having that explained. I kind of want to talk about, your future vision. I mean, one thing I was, very interested by was saying that data entry as we know it will be dead by the end of this decade. What replaces it?
Conversations.
Mm,
Um, as you and I were talking, I'm meeting AIs taking notes. Conversational AI already exists. Inference logics already exist. So imagine that I'm at a health clinic and I'm the intake coordinator. You are a patient. All I have to do at this time, instead of sitting down, looking at the computer and data entry, I am connecting with you. I'm empathizing your health condition. I'm trying to figure out through a conversation. An AI or any other tool, if you will, speech to text at a basic level, is capturing that data, summarizing the case notes, plugging it into an abstract form in the background. So the amount of time I'm using typing things in the keyboard becomes immaterial. That's where things are going already, right? I know a bunch of health clinics who are playing with our system, and we're integrating with their conversation AI. So when I said data entry is going to be dead, entry is going to transform, going from form-based applications to I want to say contextual applications. Yeah.
hmm.
Um, and that's where at least we envision Quantibly to be in 2 to 3 years time. And it could be in any language. I mean, let's assume you and I, we both have different, we speak in two different languages, and I am having a conversation with you to do some impact work. The AI can translate and capture that data. So that's
Hmm.
where I think this will go. Um, the and the AI bubble is bursting a little bit because everybody is
Hmm.
talking about AI, AI, AI. But the fact of the matter is that some of this technology, the speech to text and this kind of data capture, it has been around before, OpenAI came to fruition, if you will. So
Hmm.
the tech isn't new. The application is new, I want to say.
I
Right.
like that. I like that a lot. That's huge. I mean, having all of that said, right? I mean, after decades in this field, I want to switch to more of like a personal angle, but what's been the hardest lesson for you as a founder?
You can go to market fast or you could go to market right, but
Mm,
never at the same time. As an entrepreneur, when we first started out, and this one of the other ventures I've done, all the stakeholders, investors, they were like, there's an advantage of going to market fast and stuff like that. And a lot of organizations, a lot of entrepreneurs fall into that trap of going to
mhm,
market fast as opposed to going to market right. What I mean by that is that if you try to do this right, you need to think about value creation, not just creating a tool, right? You need to
mhm,
understand what you're building. You need to figure out, if I release this product in the market, will it be obsolete in 6 months or a year or
mhm,
3 years' time, right? So you almost have to think like that. So you almost have to think of a future product that doesn't exist yet. And it's
enough.
very difficult to do, to build a future product that you have envisioned that nobody else has yet. Because what
Mhm,
happens is a lot of entrepreneurs try to copy existing platforms and with a little nuance here and there. Oh, I am better than that platform because I have this and they don't have that. That's not
mhm,
a value proposition. That's a product differentiation. Yeah. So
fair.
that's the first lesson. I always encourage, as a founder, do things right than doing things fast.
Mhm.
Second part is that you can have the most brilliant idea or absolutely garbage idea. It doesn't matter. If you don't have the right team. vision aligned team, not skilled. Skill set can be acquired, right?
Hmm.
Um, if you don't have a vision aligned team, you're not going to be successful. Not just, and I we don't define success by how much MRR and ARR, because I think those are bullshit matrix anyway.
Metrics.
Um, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be able to scale. Team
Hmm.
is what makes the product better. Uh,
Hmm.
when I first started, and we learned it from our mistakes, we thought, hey, if we roll out a superior product, if you build it, they will come. It doesn't happen that way. It's the team,
Hmm.
because their commitment, their understanding of this grand vision that the future that doesn't exist yet is what's going to make the difference.
Hmm.
Um, so that's the second part. Um, and the third thing is that you don't need to know everything as a founder. I have
True.
no technical background. This is my third tech company. Um, you know, because I understand systems. Meaning, what I'm trying to say is that it's not to say that I'm smarter than other people. It's just to say that I know people who are much smarter and qualified to talk about these things, and I can tap
Hmm.
into their expertise. So knowing your limitation as a founder is, I think, fundamental to become successful.
Of course. I love that. And I mean, I think you have that mindset. So, I mean, if you weren't building Quantibly, where else would you want to make an impact?
Um, that's a great question. So, um, over the years, I have have been experimenting with multiple, different ideas. I am very interested in access to healthcare.
Hmm.
It's a fundamental human right, just like how I view my worldview says health, education, housing. These are fundamental human rights, um, and trillion-dollar opportunities at the same time. I don't want to sound
Of
all
course.
altruistic here. Um, if I were in building Quantably, I would probably focus on either health or how to prevent child trafficking,
Hmm.
trafficking, preventing child abuse and neglect. I did that work for over a decade, and um, I burned out emotionally
Yeah.
and
Fair.
psychologically. I couldn't take it anymore because it just feels like you're not making a difference. So if I weren't doing this, I would be doing that. Um, and grow my own vegetables so that I can live off the grid.
Hmm.
That's what I would do.
It's incredible. Cyrus, well, honestly, this has been very eye-opening. I think you've helped kind of dismantle the myth that, nonprofits are small, slow, or, unsophisticated, but, they're running trillion-dollar operations that demand real infrastructure. And it's clear Quantably is building, the backbone for that future. So, I mean, for anyone listening, whether you're a nonprofit, social enterprise, or just curious about how tech can drive accountability and trust, check out quantably.com and follow the work Cyrus and his team are doing. Any other links or places that you would recommend people to get connected with you or just to learn a little bit more?
Sure. I know I mentioned human services, but even if you're not a human services, not for profit or NGO, you can still talk to us, reach out. Our platform is very diverse. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is open. I respond to those messages myself, no virtual AI and assistants. Um, or you can just send me an email, ckazi@quantably.com, and talk to us, because we are not just going to tell you what to do. We are also learning from you. It's a learning and listening project for us as well. So if you have an idea, if you think Quantably can make a difference for your organization, your mission, your impact, talk to us. Would love to figure out how to partner together.
It's huge. Well, thanks again for joining us, Cyrus. And to our listeners, if this episode gave you a new perspective on the scale of nonprofits, share it with someone in your network. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts. We have tons of more conversations with founders and leaders building solutions that actually matter. So, Cyrus, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. And I really look forward to seeing what you guys can keep building.
Thank you, Eric. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and I hope your listeners got some value out of our conversation.
Likewise, thank you. And to everybody, we'll see you guys next time on the next episode. So take care, and we'll see you next time.